Come over here. Me and you, we both know that your New Year's resolution, it will not last. That motivation will drop like you did as a child, and you won't even last a few weeks in. So let's just cut straight to the chase. We're going to exploit that motivation when it's at its peak, and we're going to sustain it with and without motivation. When you're so motivated, especially at this time of the year, you go all in. You set new routines, you set new habits, and you set high expectations on yourself, but you fail to notice that this is only sustainable for that version of yourself that is at its peak energy right now. And you fail to consider the days that you will feel just so tired and unable to achieve anything. Whenever I'm really motivated, I always set these super intense routines and I never stick to them because the next day I feel super tired. And motivation, for some reason, it just seems to blind us. But this time it will be different. Okay, we're going to set conscious decisions. So you gotta decide what actually matters this year. And for the love of God, do not set 10 to 20 goals because, yeah, it seems achievable right now when you're high. So we're not going to dig deep on how to set smart goals and plan your 2026 year. I've got another video for that. It's a very detailed video on how to set smart goals, create a vision for yourself, and plan out your 2026 year and beyond using a very evidence-based framework. The best thing to do right now when your motivation is at its peak is plan out the days that you won't want anything done and when you're at your lowest and just full on tired. We want to play the game smart, so we're going to use motivation wisely and build something that does not depend on it. So we've established that motivation is only temporary, but what actually carries us through the rest of the year once that feeling is gone. So I'd like to introduce the dumb it down system. We're going to design a real consistent system that works even when you're tired, bored, and just uninspired. The goal here is not to do more. No, it's to make showing up impossible to avoid. So for habit building, commit to only doing 10 minutes of the habit that you're trying to maintain. Whether it's reading every day or just trying to stay consistent in going to the gym, just dumb it down, make it manageable enough that even a child could commit to it. Because it takes about an average of 66 days to create a habit. So make it simple enough that you could show up every single day to make it actually stick. Because if it survives the bad days, it will become automatic. And once it becomes automatic, you will never need motivation ever again. There's another reason that this works and is actually recommended for you to do is that doing small achievable tasks every single day will start to help build trust in yourself again, because you've been betraying yourself for so long, setting new goals every single year only to abandon them weeks later. And each time you do, you lose a little more trust in yourself, and that could actually be dangerous in the long term, because having zero confidence in yourself when it comes to achieving your goals and believing that you will never commit to something is detrimental. So we gotta start by keeping small promises to ourselves and reinforcing that belief that you could actually follow through. And once self-trust is built, consistency no longer feels like war, and that's when you can increase the intensity of the habit. So instead of 10 minutes of reading every single day, you can increase it to 30 minutes a day, but don't increase it before the habit becomes automatic. Another reason people quit is that they expect progress to feel exciting, that life-changing experience, but more often than not, it just feels hella boring before it feels rewarding. Especially at the beginning of every single year or when you're starting out, everything feels new, exciting, and motivating, but that phase, it does not last. Eventually, this novelty just fades, the work starts to feel repetitive, and the results aren't visible yet, and just people assume that nothing is working or something is wrong. Sometimes they mistake boredom for failure, especially when the results hasn't popped off yet. The key is the difference between you and that person who will quit once things become boring is that you will follow through that boring, quiet phase, even when it does not feel dramatic or rewarding. You will outlast everyone, and that's when real progress starts to show. So this step is about training yourself to be less emotional about progress. But how can we be less emotional about progress? Because it is only natural to check in with our feelings before we move on. You will stop asking yourself, how do I feel? And instead, ask yourself, what's the next small actionable task? Now we move on to how to manipulate motivation. Instead of waiting for motivation to randomly appear here and there, we're going to take control of it. We're going to create new, fresh starts. The reason this works is because your brain, it loves fresh starts. It feels like a psychological reset where you can put all failures behind you and start with a new version of you. That is why people get so motivated at the end and at the start of every single year. It feels like a new chapter, and your brain always responds with a burst of motivation. And you know what system utilizes this effortlessly? Is the 12-week year plan. Here's what we're gonna do. we're going to pretend that every 12 week is an entire year, and you're going to plan your 2026 New Year's resolution based on that. You're going to naturally feel motivated every 12 weeks, and we're going to use those spikes of motivation to achieve and sustain these small actions to achieving those big goals of yours. And that's why I love this system, because it just keeps the momentum alive. Next, we're going to use social media as a motivation tool. Whenever I'm in a rut and I don't want to go to the gym, I always open Gym Talk, and it never ceases to motivate me, because watching other people with the results and the life that you're aiming for will always boost your motivation, because your brain starts to feel like it's actually possible. Like, why can't I have it? And it naturally starts to work towards it. So that is the only exception for consuming social media that I allow myself to do, and you should too. So if you want to become a psychologist or a content creator, or want to achieve that hourglass figure, consume content of people who have already achieved that goal. And the third thing that never ceases to give me the motivation boost that I need is looking at my vision board, because sometimes you're just too focused on the current time and you make decisions based on the now when you fail to consider the bigger picture, what you're actually looking forward to. Sometimes we get so uninspired, and that's where the vision board comes in, because not only will it increase your motivation, but it will reinforce the belief that what you're working toward is actually possible. And checking in regularly will help you stay on track and whether your daily actions still align with your bigger vision or not. So if you haven't created your vision boards yet, this is your sign to do it. Motivation will come and go, especially at the start of the new year, and it is only smart to acknowledge that it won't last you the entire year. While you can learn how to manipulate motivation and like make it spike whenever you want, sometimes it will not work, okay? And people who change their lives, they aren't reliant on it. They build systems without it. And let the rest of the year be built on alignment, not hype. And I'll see you in the next video.